It's a struggle and it's a fight. Like, I would say, they say you stay in this fight or flight mode. I was in fight at all times. I felt I was fighting for my life. I felt I was fighting to feed my brothers and sisters. I felt I was fighting to feel worth something. I felt I was fighting to even be seen as a person or as an individual and not just someone that would be a mattress for men to lay on. I was in a constant fight.
Des Perkins is a fighter. She's had to fight for everything she has in life. And these streets, or the Blade as they're sometimes called, were her battlefield. There were many times her circumstances, the cruel realities of a drug-addicted mother, poverty, sexual abuse, human trafficking, gangs, alcohol, and teenage pregnancy almost beat her. But like a phoenix, she rose from the ashes. What you're about to hear is Des's story in her own words. She wrote much of it down in a book called Warrior. A warning. It is graphic, and it is heartbreaking.
I always wanted a father because I felt if I had a father, these things wouldn't happen. A father would protect me. I would go to these dances with the father. I thought all these things that a little girl having a father would do. So yeah, I wanted a dad.
And then what came around initially?
Initially, it was great. My aunt didn't want us around him at first because my mom had just met him and he had daughters. So I was like, okay, he had 2 daughters that lived with him. Okay, this is going to be great. I have some sisters now, and his sons lived right up the street. It's going to be a family. So I thought it was going to be amazing, but it tragically turned different.
You talk in here about the very first time that you remember being molested.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when that happened?
I would say 5 or 6, maybe. He made sure that we did everything that he wanted. I would see him hit on my mom. I even saw him throw a refrigerator on my mom. So I'm scared of him, but I also want him to be my dad. So if you're telling me this is the way things have to be, then okay, this is the way things have to be. Then one day he told me to get under the covers. I didn't really think too much of it because my mom was in the room ironing. However, I noticed that she never ever looked up from ironing. I got under the covers with him and he touched my thigh. But that's not all he did. He was touching my thigh, still rubbing my back and rubbing my hair. Then I felt his hand progress to the middle of my thigh. He was rubbing the top of my thigh to the middle of my thigh. Then he pretended to accidentally brush my private part so I wouldn't be shocked or something. I remember looking up at her and hoping she would ask me something, but she didn't ask me nothing. She just looked at me and told me that she loved me. I didn't say anything. I didn't complain. I didn't do anything. I thought I had made her proud. By the time I started having full-blown sex, I was around 7 or 8. Yeah.
Do you think your mother knew all this was going on?
She says she didn't. And I honestly, I can't blame her because she was so heavily into drugs. I also have to know that she did what she could. The drugs had her mind. And when drugs, if a person is familiar with that, when you're on drugs, nothing and nobody takes the place of that drug. All you're thinking of is the next high. When I was young, I used to ask God, why did you let me be born to this person? This person is a horrible person. Why? After years and years and years of abuse, she finally leaves him and we get our own place. And maybe a year into our own place, she let him come back around. So I kind of knew then that she definitely knew what was going on. It was all about the money and getting the drugs. It was all about the money and getting the drugs.
Do you ever feel like your childhood was stolen?
Absolutely. I never experienced a graduation. I didn't get to go to our 8th grade trip because my mom had paid for it, my 8th grade trip. She paid for it, but she wanted the money back because she was fiending during that time. Me and her walked up to the school the day of the trip. We were going to Magic Mountain. That would have been my first trip ever to Magic Mountain. She cussed everyone out and got that $40 back, and I cried. When she got home, she paid for drugs, of course. All I could think was, you love your drugs. You love these dope dealers. You love everybody more than me, more than us. Why are we here? I thought about suicide. I never would go through with it, but I thought about it, especially on this day. I thought about ways to kill her. I thought about ways to have her killed. I remember dreaming I wanted her to walk across that busy street and have a bus hit her. I thought about stabbing her in her sleep. Life would be better without her because life was hell. There weren't many happy moments as a kid. We never ever had birthdays. We were never celebrated. I don't remember her ever saying happy birthday. I don't remember her ever saying she loved us. Ever. She never hugged us. I feel like we were just objects that were her welfare and food stamps. And that's all we were. We were a means to an end, and we didn't mean anything. One day, Child Protective Services showed up to our doorstep. Of all the days they would show up, my mother wasn't home. We opened the door, and they came in and saw we didn't have any furniture and no food. They started asking us questions, and we were telling them the truth. When was the last time you ate? Like 2 days ago? When was the last time you saw your mom? 2 or 3 days ago. Where does your mom go? We don't know. After we got taken, you would think she would have learned her lesson, but no. She started doing the same old things again, including selling her food stamps. We would be hungry as hell sitting up in that apartment.
You talk in your book about learning to steal in order to get food for you and your brother and your sister.
Yeah.
What was that like, realizing just at 10 years old that, like, I have to take care of
I have to
this?
take care of them. I'm the oldest of 7, so I needed to make sure they were taking care of everything that was happening to me. I didn't want to happen to them. I didn't want them to experience anything, so I took it upon myself to make sure that whatever I did the best that I could do. So I became the best thief possible because I had to make sure my brothers and sisters ate. I let men ravage my body because I wanted them to have a future and to feel protected and not worry about all the things that I was going through. It wasn't about me, it was about them.
At just 10 years old, that is such a heavy burden to carry. How did you get so strong?
I just felt it was my job. It was my job to protect the family.
When was the first time that your mother did start to sell you for sex?
I want to say 8th or 9th grade. 8th or 9th grade on I Street. She told me one day that it was time for you to start helping the family. So she would have Johns come into the house, into our apartment, and they were having sex with her, and she was getting money. But they started seeing how I was developing, and they started telling her that they wanted me. So she started giving me to them. One day I remember my mom told me I needed to go take a bath and I needed to smell good because she was taking me somewhere. I did as I was told. She walked me down to the 7-Eleven and there was a dope dealer who had just gotten out of jail. She told him do whatever it was that he needed to do. He smiled and handed her a 50 pop.
Did you know when she said you have to help the family, did you know what she was talking about?
I didn't, but I didn't care. She said I had to help the family and I wanted to help because I thought that would make her proud of me.
What is it like being in the thick of that?
I was in a constant fight. So to me, that's what trafficking feels like. You're constantly in survival mode. You're never safe. You're never secure. You have to figure out what's the next thing you got to do to make it. So that's what trafficking to me feels like.
CPS removed Des and her brother and sister several times, but her mother always completed court-ordered parenting classes and regained custody. One time, Des's mother was arrested for prostitution and sent to jail for 3 months. What should have been a reprieve from devastating abuse for Des turned out to be another sad turn in her life. Her temporary guardian moved in and began molesting her. Then, just a middle schooler, Des started to drink.
I didn't know what to do, so I started drinking. I drank every night. I drank until I would pass out. I drank so I wouldn't know anything or be coherent. I just literally drank, and I drank everything.
Tell me a little bit about your high school counselor and how she affected your life.
Miss Russell Reeder. She had me scared of her. She had me scared of her. I would say the first year, because I was in and out of high school, I was getting kicked out, I was fighting. She had heard about me. I had never went to see her. So one day she called me in and she was like, you're going to be something. You're going to do this. She bought me clothes. She gave me hygiene products. She cared.
What was that final straw for you, or specific turning point from old life to where you are now?
I would say it took the counseling. I was still not satisfied. I was still running around, even in my early 20s. I was still running around doing things. I was in a gang when I was younger. You know, I've tried drugs. I did all these different things. And then the pastor telling me, you're not responsible for what people did to you. You're only responsible for what you do to people. So make what you do count. You're not responsible for what people did to you. You're only responsible for what you do to people. So make what you do count.
After nearly ending up in prison for 5 years, Des decided to take that advice to heart. As a single mother to 4 children, Des enrolled in college. She obtained a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a minor in child development. But she didn't stop there. She went on to receive a master's in business and a master's in educational counseling, as well as a teaching credential. After recording her unbelievable life story in her book, Warrior, she was approached by State Senator Shannon Grove to work on passing a bill to bring justice to human trafficking survivors like herself. Eventually, it would lead to starting her own nonprofit, Empowerment.
We went to Sacramento, and the bill was shot down, of course, and I was so angry. And Senator Grove was like, be angry, but we're coming back. And so we came back, and that was SB 14, and I was the key witness for that one. And she was like, we're gonna get this. Just keep going, just keep fighting, and we're gonna get it. Well, they shot it down again, and the media got involved, and that bill was resurrected in 48 hours. And it passed. Then we introduced SB 1414, which goes after the buyers, and that just passed. So we're on the right track. There's a lot that we still have to add in because they took out 16 and 17-year-olds, and they took out the indigenous population. Yeah, like they don't matter.
But that's a step forward to protect children in the state of California, so we're excited the bill is still moving forward.
Senator Grove had taken me to the Lincoln Day dinner, and she got up there and she started speaking, and she said, we're going to Sacramento and we're going to introduce this legislation. And the whole audience, she had me stand up. And then she told them, that's my witness and she's a survivor and all these things. And the whole room stood up and gave me a standing ovation. And I cried because I had never experienced anything like that. Like I was the person that they were cheering on. And that evening, she came up to me. She said, there are people here who want to give you money to help you combat human trafficking. Do you have a nonprofit? And I said, no. I never even thought of a nonprofit, right? She said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to help at-risk youth and human trafficking victims just like me. And she told me, she said, we're going to get this going. So that's how empowerment came to be.
That's incredible. And what do you get to do now with that?
We've done so many trainings. We've done human trafficking conferences, human trafficking symposiums.
When did you know that you wanted to work with kids?
I've always been the type of person that wants to protect the person that's being hurt. I am truly someone that went through it and I made it out of it. So there is people that really do care in education. There are people that really do care. So I'm here for you. So I that's what I instill in them. You are worthy. You are worth it. You do matter. And I do hear you and I absolutely see you.
We drive down Union Avenue and we see girls scantily clad walking around, and so many times I think we judge them
as prostitutes.
Right.
And they want to be there. And most of them are trafficked victims. Today I do a lot of work with Homeland Security and BPD. And when I interview these girls and I talk to them and I tell them my story to try to get information from them, they're not even from here. And they do have pimps and they don't want to do what they're doing. So those women don't want to be out there. Most of them are not from Bakersfield. They're from Hanford, Fresno, Vegas, LA. That's what a lot of them have told us. And then they also told us that some of them learned how to walk the blade on TikTok.
How do we help? How do you stop it?
We have to keep doing what we're doing. This interview, last night I was talking to the Board of Education, talking to entities like that, getting into the schools, providing awareness seminars and symposiums and showing what prevention looks like. And then it takes our community. Yeah, it's happening everywhere, but we can't solve everywhere until we solve right here. So interviews like this, keeping it in the forefront of people's minds, because January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, but human trafficking happens 12 months out of a year, 365 days.
If you could go back and you could tell that young girl, even that teenager, that young woman, that you were now being named Remarkable Woman of the Year, what do you think she would say? What would her reaction be?
You know, I'll go back to when we signed the bill for SB 14. And when I spoke at the press conference, one of the last statements that I made was, now that young girl can rest. So I would tell her, or she would tell me, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for keeping me. And I would tell her, now you can rest because I got this from here.
If you are being trafficked, there is help. You can call 1-888-373-7888. You can also text HELP to 233-733. And you can find out more about Dessa's Foundation at empowermentdp.org. We've put all of this information at kget.com.
The International Labor Organization estimates over the last decade there were more than 40 million human trafficking victims worldwide.
I was penetrated between 6 and 7, maybe 8 years old. It's hard to remember. It was so long ago. And around 13, I started being sold.
They're warriors. They are warriors. To have that lived experience and then share that story with all of us, I feel like they tell us a story and they walk out and there's no way we could hear anything worse than what that individual just described to us. And then the next person that comes in is even worse. And the things that happen to these women and these children are so brutal that we can't even publicly say them on the Senate floor. It's absurd.